Hey everyone, my name is Jackson Heller. I'm the owner and operator of Hellerstown LLC. I've left what most people consider to be normal in order to pursue my dreams. With God's blessing, help from my entire family, and of course my friends, I have moved my entire life around, sold my possessions, acquired the new skills, and thought in entirely new ways. All this in order to make a life worth living.
Today is the day. Um, I quit my job.
But how did I get here? And more importantly, why? Today, we rewind.
In the not so distant past, I was just a kid with way too many ideas and nothing to do with them. I lived on the belief that as long as other people around me were happy, that it didn't really matter how I felt. And that was obviously a wrong way to live my life. Until one day, I had a buddy show me a video from a channel called Kurt's Kag. I'll link it. It's it was called The Egg. It was just a different way to believe that the world was built from a different perspective, that um, we were all the same people, and that when we die, we just reset consciousness and go into someone else's mind. And so anybody that you're across from could be you, you know. And it wasn't that I believed it, and the video was whatever, but it was the first thing that truly challenged my belief system and made me think differently. And the resetting of my belief system spiraled into endless possibilities, that all of these ideas, that every different reality and possibility was attainable or already real to someone else. Now able to completely change my perspective and challenge my own beliefs, I was able to cascade into all of these possibilities, that now I don't know what's real, and so I have to go find out what I believe, which brings me to the next philosophy, which was a good evolution from who cares how I feel, and it was the alarm clock philosophy. That one day I woke up and I wasn't working at the time, and I had this alarm clock, and I needed to go do something, and it was like something really dumb, like reorganize my room or whatever. And I would never have enough time in a day, and I would always miss things. And so I realized, after just plugging in my alarm clock and setting an alarm, that uh, well, the key to all these belief systems, to like testing things, is to just have an idea, set an alarm, get up and go figure it out. To take any idea, however ludicrous, however out there, and beta test it. I mean, how else are you going to know what you believe, right? Um, and so I got a job. I moved across the country. I went and worked in Alabama, and for a company called Faith Technologies, I became an electrician. I wasn't very good at what I did. I was good at what I did. I just didn't enjoy showing up. And something about working for someone else didn't sit right with me. But like I said, I was trying 1,000 things. And so this phase was, I had never seen money coming in like this. And so I was able to try new hobbies like skydiving and boxing, climbing, and it didn't really matter. I just did anything and anything so that way I could get out of the funk that I was in from paralysis by analysis, just having way too many options and not ever truly discovering who I am and was, which I can now do freely, openly. And leaving Alabama, I'd worked there for about 9 months, and I came across another video. I don't know if I'll be able to find this one, but it was called the Camel, the Lion, and the Child, and it was an Eastern philosophy about a style of thought that you go through three phases. That there's the camel, which is hardy animal that prepares for the journey. It brings the water, it brings the supplies that it needs to cross the desert, that it does the hard thing to get to where it needs to go, right? And I believed that I had spent most of my life, all of my life, as the camel, that I had never chose a destination. I was just always traveling, and that was my problem. And that in order to go to the next step, I needed to be this lion, which in the Eastern philosophy is the one that takes the stand, right? You're where you want to be, you're where you need to be, and now you have to all those belief systems that you test out and um, you use to challenge who you are. Are you willing to die for that? Are you willing to stand on that hill and be who you're meant to be without any regrets, right? And I was not that person. I had no spine. I was doing what I was told, and I was trying to learn as much as I could along the way, but I had no direction or will of my own, and I most certainly was not listening to God at this point. Way back then, I couldn't even have imagined being where I am today, especially as quickly as I got here, um, because I believe I'm in the phase of the child, which is the creative side of things, right? That a child always tries to walk, and it doesn't care how many times it falls, it's going to figure it out, because that's what it needs to learn to get to the next step. And I feel like as a people, we get to a place where we figure out how to pay our bills and we have insurance and we have a job. And if we just do the thing that we're doing over and over and over and over, we know we're taken care of, and it's fine, right? I mean, you've been the line, you took a stand, you know who you are, and you're rooted where you are. But now what, right? And so I left Alabama, searching to be that lion. I moved to Fond du Lac, which is actually where I was born, and I began reading and researching and trying to put together a lot of life experience that I had talked to people together, um, and start making that stand, which is where I ended up reading The Life of Pi, which may be one of my few favorite books ever. But in The Life of Pi, the precursor to him going on the raft with the lion was actually it was actually a religious battle inside of Piscine Patel, and he was simultaneously going to a Hindu temple, Judaism, synagogue, and a Christian church. And he was directly talking to the congregation and to the heads of all of these churches to try to understand God. And one day, all three of these heads of these churches are talking to Piscine, and they're like, "Well, we'll see you at choir practice or whatever." And they're like, "What do you mean choir practice? Like, he's a good Muslim boy." And he's like, "No, he's a good Hindu boy." So they start bickering amongst themselves that, well, he couldn't possibly be all three, right? And they argue for forever, and their parents, they bring them in, and he hadn't told his parents, and so they're all confused. And he goes on living. He's doing his thing, and he goes back to the church, and well, the priest asks him, he says, "Why do you want to pray outside?" And he says, "As a matter of fact, why do you want to pray at all?" And he says, "Because I love God." That's all he was trying to achieve, was a better understanding of God, who he knew he believed in, but he didn't know who to trust from a human perspective. How far was he willing to take it to understand his creator? And that was a turning point for me, that I didn't know what I was doing, and I didn't know what I was piecing together, but I knew that God would have the next day taken care of, and that as long as I followed the next breadcrumb, eventually I would get there. And I'm far from ever being there. We're never there. Uh, but to build the relationship with God is what unlocks the key to our lives, right? Which goes to the next step. There was another book I read, following The Life of Pi. I'd moved to Omaha, and Omaha, Nebraska was where I truly took my stand. I ended up leading a crew out there, and I changed my profession. I was a Bixie technician as opposed to an electrician. Um, we think a little bit more than doing. All the electricians are seething right now. But the book that I read was Mere Christianity while I was out there, and this and the Life of Pi made the next logical jump for me. There's he saves it. C.S. Lewis is a really good author. He saved it right for the end, the second to last page, where my favorite quote of all time. And for context, he's actually, this entire chapter is talking about the next step in human evolution. And here's the quote: I should expect that the next stage in evolution not to be a stage in evolution at all. Should expect that evolution itself as a method of producing change will be superseded, which means that we as humanity cannot evolve as evolution normally does, but it will be an evolution of the soul, and that's where Jesus comes into play, where our relationship with God comes in. And so for the actual quote that I love is, how monotonously alike are all the great tyrants and conquerors. How gloriously different are the saints. And that allowed me to take all this weirdness and all this exploration and all these parts and pieces, and just it clicked that I could put it all together and truly be a different version of myself, that I didn't have to be like anyone else. I didn't have to be like my mentors or my friends or the people around me or how my family told me was normal. And I had fantastic mentors. I have great friends. I have a very loving family. But I only have one life, right? It's my life. And God designed me uniquely from anyone ever. And so at some point you have to branch off. You have to be something different. I was in Omaha for almost 3 full years, and we did some really great things out there. I had some really good mentors, and the entire way I couldn't have asked for a better experience, because the people I met at churches, at gyms, through work, it wasn't because I felt obligated to be close to the people around me. It was a genuine experience that deepened my understanding and my relationship with God, and the people that were around me helped me do that. But I read this book, which is The Alchemist. It's on a top 100 book list. It's fantastic. But my mother gave that book to me for Christmas, and it's about this boy who travels the world in search of alchemy, which is magic at the time, that there's immortality, and there's the concept to change any one item into any other item. You would essentially have complete and total control and power. And so it was this famed art. And so he travels the world, he leaves his relative safety to go and find this. And along the way, he learns that he can't just have one goal, because there's a number of things you have to do from stage 1 to stage 100 to get there. If you forget about the other 98 stages, then it doesn't matter how good the idea was if you're not willing to look at it. This guy discovers how to keep going, and eventually he finds this alchemist who teaches him the ways of alchemy, and eventually master, or student becomes master, right? And he leaves the world behind, which is something that the alchemist could never do, and becomes something entirely different. He knows God. He knows the universal language of the world. He knows how to speak to God, and there's nothing that supersedes that. That was the next idea that propelled me into where I am now, that it didn't really matter what I chose to do with this LLC, with this company, with my life. It only mattered that I had something to understand God through, a language, a commonality. And so I've taken this to take on a number of projects that it may help build my relationships and explore new options around me. It can broaden my horizons in ways that I don't understand. And so I've built this from an idea. I've bought the building that I'm currently sitting in. I've started renovating it and automating the processes of manufacturing on 3D printing and the microelectronics side, which is custom PCBs and drones. So those two going together, hopefully print the drones, create the PCB, the well, the control boards, and then program them to fly. And so this brings me to my final book, a little guy called the Bible. And my um, favorite verse and my guiding light right now, I was driving to work one day in a car in my truck, and all of a sudden, never read it, never saw it. Timothy 6:11 pops into my head, and of course, sends me. I just think of something I've never thought before, and it ends up. So this entire chapter of Timothy, First Timothy, is Moses going over everything that Christians, well, at the time Jews were doing, were part of, how deacons were in the church, how people should act in the church according to their role, how while there were people who minister to others, there were slaves, there were women, there was well, he tried to hit everyone apparently, and what was right and what was wrong, and he was instructing Timothy to act differently. And Timothy 6:11 is, "But flee from these things, you man of God, and pursue righteousness, godliness, faith, love, perseverance, and gentleness." And if you can see, I have Timothy 6:11 on here because, well, you have to be set apart from who you used to be. You have to run away from the things that tempt you. And so a lot of times it's not always God yes, it's, well, devil no. And so Timothy here is instructed to flee from the path of evil and follow in the footsteps of Moses, ultimately what God is instructing them to do. And so that is the intention of this place, and the intention of not really limiting this building, and this idea, this business, this whatever, this venture. And so I have ideas. I have a lot of places. I have a portfolio of things that I want to complete, and I'll show you guys eventually. But slowly, I wouldn't want to ruin the surprise. But yeah, we're gonna take it one step at a time.